Hello, everyone, and thank you again for joining us for another Prides podcast. Today, I'm excited to have Jillian Nelson joining us. So, before we get started, Jillian, if you could introduce yourself, share your pronouns, and tell our listening audience a little bit more about the work that you do and who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Jillian Nelson. My pronouns are she and her. I am the public policy director at the Autism Society of Minnesota. But mostly I'm here today just as a queer autistic adult who's also polyamorous and really, really enjoy spending time with the world, talking about neurodiversity and leadership opportunities, and making sure that we're kind of opening up the world to give people with disabilities the most potential and possibility. And it all starts with how we think about the world.
Love that. And that's an amazing, wonderful topic, neurodiversity and leadership. Can you kind of share a little bit about why that was so important for you to share and why it's so important for people who are listening and who do the work to fully understand what that means and how they can support that approach to leadership and engaging more people who are neurodiverse in the work?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually a really fun story. So, I'm the policy director of my organization, but I wasn't always the policy director. I was actually hired as a receptionist. It turns out I'm a really bad receptionist. But we know that, like in the neurodiverse world, and especially the autism world, we see about 80% unemployment or underemployment, because we don't really give a lot of opportunities. I was lucky enough to land at an organization with a really great leadership that really kind of looked at my special interests and the things that I was good at and actually created a department that I am the only person that's ever held my job. Like I do our information resource, I do our public policy work, and it really plays to my unique talents. But in that growth, I did a fellowship at the University of Minnesota last year called the Humphrey Policy Fellowship. And the goal of this fellowship is to take people from across different industries and who have very different beliefs. So, from all different political walks of life, all different religious walks, all different backgrounds, and bring them together to work on policy work and learn how to work with people that don't always see the things the same way we see them. And as part of this, there was a lot of talk and training about leadership. Like the first half of the fellowship, every month, we would have someone come in and do a presentation on different leadership styles and how to be a leader in that style. And I would sit there and I would take it as much as I could and like all these tips, but I would realize that so many of the things and the guidelines for what makes a good leader in this leadership style were so exclusionary for neurodiverse people, like, oh, building a rapport with like building in a social emotional rapport with your colleagues, things like good eye contact and like connecting. And there were all these like stereotypical ideas of what networking looked like. And I would sit there and be like, yeah, I'm a leader. I've been making massive changes in the world around me. I've built a reputation in this policy community. But none of these models fit who I am if I'm going to show up and do my job authentically. So I really started challenging the concepts of this is how we're training the future leaders of our state to lead. This is how we're training the people that are going to bring up the next generation of leaders. And we're telling them that these are the requirements for someone to be a leader. But I don't think it's necessarily true. Like, I don't think it matters an ounce if I can hold eye contact consecutively through an entire meeting for me to be a good leader. I don't believe that I have to build relationships in the same way as everyone else in order to be a good leader. And so I really started challenging those ideas and asking questions in those spaces about those and how do we make these models inclusive? And nobody had answers. Like these leaders of leadership, no one had answers on how do we make these inclusive for people with disabilities. So I thought about it myself. I sat down and said, okay, well, if I were in a system where the formal models of leadership were what were valued, what would I need in order to be able to be successful? And that's what I started teaching other people. That's what I started talking about. Before I came into this role, I was actually an employment consultant for an organization doing job development and job coaching specifically for people with autism. And I saw the same things over and over. Like, okay, we're going to find you an entry level job, and then we're just going to figure out how to keep you there for the rest of your life and make sure we can maintain this job. And we just, people with disabilities, especially neurodiverse people, have so much to offer this world, but we have to change as a society what we look at leadership as so that people can move beyond those entry level roles and really be embraced for all they have to offer the workplace.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. And it's true, and I think unfortunately the system, as you mentioned, is crafted to continue to exclude individuals who are neurodiverse um, from leadership. So, what this might be a big question, but what would you recommend, or how would you um, share with individuals who are neurodiverse to prepare themselves and help them become better leaders, and to the point, neurodiverse leaders who are also LGBTQIA plus to prepare themselves to be leaders in this work?
Well, I think it's definitely a cooperative effort. We need the people bringing up leaders to be more curious and especially like within our queer community. Like we as a community, as an LGBT community, we know how to throw out social constructs. Like we challenge the social constructs of what relationships look like. We challenge the social constructs of what gender is supposed to be. Why can't we challenge the social constructs of what leaders are supposed to look like? It's the same concept. We already have the tools in the LGBTQ community to challenge social constructs. So we just need to get curious. And instead of saying, no, this person doesn't fit this box, get curious to what traits does this person have that would make them a good leader? How can I support them? What things are unimportant on that imaginary leadership list? And then as individuals who are queer and neurodiverse, what we have to do is be really good at advocating for ourselves. We have to become um, unapologetically authentic to ourselves. Stop feeling shame about being neurodiverse and start embracing that fully and being willing to come to the table and say, yeah, I have ADHD and I'm capable of being a leader. These are the accommodations I might need. Or, yeah, I have autism, but I am absolutely wonderfully skilled at these things. And I believe that has a lot to offer this organization. These are the accommodations I might need. So often, the benefits of supporting neurodiverse people in the workplace, the things that we bring in, are so much greater than the accommodations we might require. Like having someone that has a keen eye for detail and pattern is so much more useful to an organization than keeping the fluorescent lights on. Like, we can dim the lights, turn on a lamp, and now you get this really great employee that can find all of the pattern recognition you need. Or, like, my biggest accommodation in my workplace is my boss has to tell me that if we're having a meeting in her office and she needs to talk to me alone, she has to tell me I'm not getting fired. That's my biggest accommodation is some reassurance that I'm not in trouble because of my anxiety. So, I mean, the accommodations that most of us need are so small compared to what we are able to give back to an organization as employees.
Yeah. Thank you for that. You said some two powerful words, which I love, which is unapologetically authentic. You know, so beyond accommodations, what else can organizations do to create a space where people can come authentically? You know, because that is something I think I know for myself that I've noticed that people continue to struggle with, right? You can offer the lamps, you can offer these different things, but there's something else that they're still not capturing. What do you think, and what are your recommendations for organizations to create that safe space of authenticity for people to arrive?
I think it's a really simple process of giving people permission, like thinking about the language we use. At the start of any presentation I ever give, I give people permission to learn authentically. If you need to lay on the floor during my presentation, lay on the floor. If you need to fidget, fidget. If you need to doodle, doodle. Do whatever you have to do to show up in the best way possible where you're going to be most engaged with the learning that's happening. And we need to give people the same permission to do that in meetings in the workspace. voice. And when we give people permission to be authentic and to let go of those social expectations of how we're supposed to perform in a meeting or how we're supposed to perform in the workplace, that's cracking the door open to being unapologetically authentic. And then the next place is when I said it's kind of the language we use when talking around authenticity. One of my favorite things about my employer is on our annual reviews. You know, you get most reviews, and it's like, does the employee distribute or exhibit positive communication styles that reflect the values of our company? Ours simply say, does the employee exhibit consistent communication styles? So it's recognizing like we don't need to be what we're not. We're not getting points for meeting an expectation to conform to the social culture of the space. We're being given points for being consistent in how we show up in our jobs. So, every single autistic employee in my organization, we all have very, very different communication styles. We don't have to be the same. We just have to be consistent so the people communicating with us know how to communicate with us. So, giving people like those points and that understanding that you don't have to be the same as everyone else. You can be unique, and we're going to value that as long as you're being unique consistently. Like, if my communication style was all over the board, it would make it a lot harder to work with me. But as long as people know how to communicate with me, that's the most important thing.
You know, and I love when you say about giving people permission because it's so true. Organizations kind of are stuck in the routines or what they deem to be professional or what is expected of you as an employee. And I think that is something that is powerful when we create that space of permission. And you also mentioned about the consistency and the language. I think I think those are things that we can continue to change. If you could, and this is a billion-dollar question, if you will, right? If you could change one thing, or maybe I'll give you a little space and say three things that organizations, people, or just the world in general could do to improve services for neurodiverse individuals, people who are LGBTQ, people with disabilities who resonate with all of that, what would it be? What would they be? What would you change? And so, yeah, I know, big questions, but please
I
feel
mean,
free.
I think it's a simple answer. And honestly, I think it's something that every single organization and every single state agency can do with absolutely zero funding. Like, serve people from all different groups that have experienced marginalization. Serve people with a curious heart and a curious mind. When we go in with these predetermined ideas of what we know and what they should be and what the possibilities are, that's when we fail people. So if we go into each interaction and we're open-minded and we're curious and we meet each person where they're at and we learn about each person as an individual because we're embracing it with curiosity, we're not going to fail. And curiosity, fun fact, I don't know if you know this, it is free and it comes in abundant supply. It is never on back order from Staples. And it's something that we all have in our toolkit if we're just willing to step outside of that predefined box that society puts us in and being willing to embrace things that we've never considered embracing before, being willing to think about things in ways we've never thought them before, and not saying, "Oh, that'll never work," or "Oh, that's not possible," and asking instead, "How is that possible? How could that work?" I mean, it's really the only tool we need to help all human beings be successful and feel accepted and feel welcomed is to just greet one another with curiosity and acceptance.
Yeah, wonderful. And I love how you curiosity is a tool. Curiosity is something that we all can lead to. And like you said, it's not a back order, doesn't cost us anything. Fabulous, fabulous. If you could sum up in one sentence, um, how you would craft the future of supported employment or support for people with disabilities. It's one of these things where kind of coalescing and bringing everything together. What does the future look like? What could the future be? Yeah, if you could kind of sum it up in a statement or so.
Um, I would really encourage us to move how we think about customized employment.
Mm,
Right now, we think about customized employment as a tool for those can't meet the status quo, that we're going to carve out something, that we're going to create something. But our society, our job seekers, our businesses are all going to be better if we look at every single job as customized employment. Like, we all have things that we're great at our job, and we all have things that we're horrible at our jobs. Well, most people. I genuinely like, I have a customized employment job, like, they just said, "What's Jillian good at?" And then created a department for me, and the things I'm not good at aren't in my department, and my productivity, and my happiness, and my satisfaction are through the roof, and that's what I really want for all people, not just people with disabilities, not just queer people, but I think our society as a whole would be better if we looked at employment as a customized opportunity rather than looking at it through the capitalistic lens of here is a list of things I need you as one person to perform. Because we can always find something or someone that's going to like things that other people don't like. I have a colleague, like there was something in my job that I was horrible at. And it turns out I have a colleague that genuinely enjoys that task. So we just shifted things around. Now she gets to do something she genuinely enjoys that she's good at. And I don't have that on my plate, which means I can spend more time talking to people about autism and working on public policy, and everyone wins. Why aren't we doing that in every employment setting? I shouldn't be the exception. I should be the guideline of this is how we do it. This is how we make all people happy and successful in the workplace.
yeah. So everyone listening, let's create a space where everyone wins.
Yep.
You know,
Customized employment for everyone.
yeah, yeah, excellent. Julian, is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners today that I haven't asked you or that you haven't had an opportunity to?
I think it's a tough time to be queer and disabled in America right now. And I just really encourage everyone to really, as we live our lives, as we do this work that's so vital to our community and to keeping people in sustainable lives and active in our communities, to just remember to take some time to find joy and to remember that our acts as queer people and people with disabilities and BIPOC people, that our existence right now is a form of resistance, and that we need to remember to take time to care for ourselves and find joy in our life and connect in communities so that we can keep supporting each other and make sure that we come out on the other side of this the same brilliantly wonderful, colorful community that we are.
Wonderful. So, Julian, finally, how can people connect with you and learn more about your work?
They can always find me via social media. I'm a blogger, Autism on the Go. I can also be reached at jilliancnelson@gmail.com or through the Autism Society of Minnesota.
Thank you so much, Jillian. I really appreciate our time together. Thank you, everyone, once again for joining us on this Prides podcast series. Be well, be kind to yourself and to each other. Take care.